Hello and welcome to the Elite Health Podcast. My name is Boomer Cornwell, one of the owners and co-founders of Elite Health Online. And with me today is Makaylah. She is our Director of Scientific Affairs and Business Development, taking on some new roles with the company. It's good to see you again. Good to have you here as always.
Thank you.
So Makaylah is always a wealth of knowledge for us. She always brings a lot of really good information to the table. Today we're going to talk about a couple of subjects that are not taboo, but a little bit off the mainstream. Some subjects that maybe we don't typically get into. So I think this is the perfect opportunity because recently we had a call with one of our patients, and he had a question around male fertility. And that's not something that really is discussed very often. We discussed female fertility. And when a couple is unable to conceive, or maybe they're having issues doing it, the thought process typically goes to the fact that it's there's something wrong with the female. Maybe the female's not doing something right. At least that's the part that, or the part of the relationship that always goes through the testing. But the aspect of the male fertility is just as important, and in some cases, if not more important, specifically if the gentleman is already on some type of therapy, in which case this patient was. So to kind of lead in, so male fertility, let's mainly start, I guess, Makaylah, from the aspect of, tell us a little bit about testosterone as a whole, okay? How does it start? What's the feedback loop? What's the epidemiology behind testosterone? Then we'll get into what it means for men later in life, specifically when they're trying to conceive.
Perfect. Thank you, Boomer, again, for having me as always. It's important to remember that the body, particularly the endocrine system, works in loops. This is so that the body can regulate levels of hormones and overall well-being. You want to reach a state of homeostasis, right? In the case of testosterone, it's easiest to think of step one at the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is where you produce chemical messengers called gonadotropin-releasing hormones. This particular chemical messenger will go down and interact with the pituitary. This is still in the brain right now. The pituitary is going to produce two chemical messengers. These are the gonadotropins. Okay. One of them being luteinizing hormone, or LH. The second being FSH, or follicular stimulating hormone. These two are going to travel all the way down in men to the testes. In the testes, you're going to get two different pathways here. LH is going to interact with a subset of cells called Leydig cells. Leydig cells are going to help produce testosterone. This is where testosterone production occurs. On the other side, you have follicular stimulating hormone. It's going to interact with what's called Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells really are the dominant cells for sperm production. So while you need FSH, you also need what's called intratesticular testosterone to produce sperm. So you need those two together. Okay. When you're supplementing, as we get to that point, when you're supplementing with what's called exogenous testosterone, meaning it's not made by your body, it's something that you're going to inject, which is what you would get from a prescriber. When you're supplementing with it, your body in this loop starts to realize, okay, I have enough testosterone in serum. I have enough testosterone circulating throughout my body, and therefore you don't produce the chemical messengers, the gonadotropin-releasing hormones, signaling to your body, okay, I need to produce FSH and LH so that I can go produce sperm and testosterone. Okay. So there you start to see, okay, you're on testosterone, you start to lose the ability to create sperm. Testosterone's not a contraceptive. You can still get on or can still conceive while you're on testosterone replacement therapy. They did look into using testosterone as a contraceptive. It just was not effective enough regularly.
So Makaylah, in terms of the male fertility, okay, again, a very important topic, tell us a little bit about how testosterone therapy affects that specifically. And what I mean by that is if I'm a male and I'm naturally producing testosterone and it goes through the process that you just described, then and my testosterone levels are fine, my endocrine system is working, all the cells are working, and I'm producing the sperm count that I need to in order to conceive or whatever. Then what's the difference in taking an exogenous form? Why would that even be considered a contraceptive or maybe a contraindication to the fertility aspect of this?
Sure. So in patients who are using exogenous testosterone, your body in this feedback loop will recognize that the levels of testosterone in your serum, so in circulation throughout your body, are normal because you're providing it from an outside source. In that case, your brain recognizes, all right, I'm stable here. I'm at a state of homeostasis. I do not need to produce gonadotropin-releasing hormones, or FSH and LH. In that case, the FSH and LH will not be present to go to the testes, produce intratesticular testosterone, and or sperm. So in that case, it will decrease your fertility, not in an effective manner to be used as a contraceptive, but enough so that it can decrease your ability to conceive when you're on an exogenous testosterone.
Okay, very cool. So my next question was going to be the options for therapy. So this is kind of where we get into the meat and potatoes. This is kind of the fun part of this, right? So there's a lot of options to address the gonadotropin like you're talking about. So there's gonadorelin, there's HCG, which has been around a while. People typically know about that one. There's clomiphene. So tell us a little bit, and if there's anything else I'm leaving out, right?
Sure.
But let's start with something like gonadorelin. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So gonadorelin is an FDA-approved drug. The brand name is called Factrol. This is synthetic GnRH, or gonadotropin-releasing hormone. This is an exogenous form of it's actually bioidentical. So it's the exact same structure as the hormone that's released from your hypothalamus. It's going to go directly to the pituitary and tell your body, hey, we need to secrete LH and FSH, both of those two signaling molecules. You'll go downstream again where the LH and FH will go down to the testes, allow you to produce intratesticular testosterone and sperm. It will help you retain your fertility and your ability to create endogenous testosterone. Meanwhile, you're supplementing with an exogenous or a synthetic testosterone as well.
So then tell us, because a product that I've liked for a long time that I think from what you described is very similar is a product called Kisspeptin,
Yes.
right? My understanding from Kisspeptin is that that's what it does. It goes and it stimulates the LH and FSH factors, right?
This is correct.
Is that the same thing as gonadorelin, or how does it differ?
No, Kisspeptin, or derived from what's called Kis10. The Kis10 is a receptor in the brain. For the purpose of, the downstream product, Kisspeptin does the same thing as gonadorelin. They are both gonadotropin-releasing hormones, and they both do subsequently cause the secretion of FSH and LH. Because of recent regulatory ordinances made by the FDA, we find that gonadorelin, which again is an FDA-approved, very safe drug that has been well studied and well researched, is more available to us than Kisspeptin.
Okay. So anyone who has been on that before and decides to go to gonadorelin should essentially get the same effect as what you're telling me, right?
Yes, I would say they should get the same effect if you're switching from Kisspeptin to gonadorelin. The end result is the same, and it's almost a synonymous switch.
Let's talk a little bit about HCG, which is a little bit more mainstream. People typically know that one. I don't know necessarily that a lot of people know kind of why they do it, because sometimes you have some providers that just put you on testosterone and HCG, and they just do it because they're told to. But talk about HCG, obviously the brand name as well, and then how does that differ from, say, gonadorelin or Kis10?
Sure. So HCG, or human chorionic gonadotropin, also called pregnil. So HCG is made by the placenta for pregnant women. That's where they found it, and it's analyzed, and synthetic HCG was actually, it used to be derived or taken from pregnant people urine.
Oh, interesting.
But regardless, HCG is structurally, it has two subunits, right? And its actual structure. The top, or the alpha subunit, is identical to that of luteinizing hormone. The beta subunit is similar to that of luteinizing hormone, however, it has a modified tail. Really what this means is that it is synonymous to LH in its action. However, its half-life is significantly longer because of the modification. The half-life of pregnil or HCG is closer to 30 hours, whereas that of LH is closer to 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
The downstream result of this is what LH would do. LH is going to go to the Leydig cells and cause the production of intratesticular testosterone. So using exogenous testosterone and HCG at the same time will allow your body to continue to producing its own testosterone. Meanwhile, you're using an exogenous testosterone to help you feel better every day.
Is there ever, and we'll get to another product in a minute, but is there ever kind of a weaning off effect? In other words, like the longer you take something like an HCG or gonadorelin or a Kisspeptin, is there ever a point where it doesn't work as well anymore, or does it always kind of create that boosting effect?
It's always going to create that boosting effect because we will not build a tolerance to our own endogenous luteinizing hormone. This is structurally almost the exact same, but an enhanced form of the hormone that you already create. So using pregnil should not cause an increase in tolerance because it is not bioidentical, but biosimilar to something that you already create. If anything, it will support your natural feedback loop by helping you continue to create testosterone so that if you were to come off of testosterone, you would still retain that ability and your withdrawal symptoms may not be as severe.
Okay. One more product that I like, I take it, is clomiphene, right?
Yes.
I believe some people call it Clomid, I believe.
Brand.
So talk about that. I know that's an oral, it's not an injection.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that and how does that differ from the other ones?
So clomiphene or Clomid is a SERM. So not a SARM. I know people are regularly familiar with selective androgen receptor modulators. Clomiphene is a estrogen receptor modulator. It was originally produced for female infertility, and it's still regularly used across the board for female infertility. The way that SERMs act is they block different portion of the pathway than you would originally see with things like HCG or gonadorelin. It's going to stop your body from thinking that you have a lot of testosterone and cause you to secrete gonadotropin-releasing hormones and then subsequently secrete luteinizing hormone. And follicular stimulating hormones. So it blocks that estrogen activity and encourages, the secretion of FSH and LH.
Okay. Any adverse reactions to or effects to any of these things we've discussed so far?
So I'm happy you brought that up. So gonadorelin and HCG, kisspeptin have a similar side effect profile. Sometimes it works better for one subset of patients than others.
Okay.
The side effect profile really is pretty limited. Local site reactions because they are injections. Alternatively, some people do have too good of a response. You might see an increase. Most of the testosterone is synthesized in the testes. About 20% of all estrogen in males is synthesized in the testes. So you might see maybe you're responding too well to HCG or gonadorelin, and therefore you become, either estrogen or testosterone dominant. If you do ever have any of those symptoms or you are concerned about any of, the side effects, you can always book a call with our PCCs or our prescribers, and they can address that for you. Alternatively would be clomiphene. Again, clomiphene or Clomid was produced for female infertility. So when it's used in men, the side effects can be a little bit more systemic. I know that in the product that we offer for Elite Health Online, we'll actually use a lower dose. Traditionally, people will use 25 milligrams. You'll see usually 12.5 milligrams to help negate some of those side effects. It's usually a little bit hormonal with the clomiphene, some mood changes, hot flashes almost, and a little bit more systemic than anything.
Systemic. Okay, so when you say systemic, give me an example of something that would occur.
So like something throughout the body. Whereas for, gonadorelin, it's going to be local. You might have some redness and itchiness at the injection site. For clomiphene, it's going to be my whole body's hot. So it's something that you feel really throughout the body. Granted, it's pretty rare. You might see side effects like mood changes in about maybe 4% of patients, I believe is what's reported. You can even see stuff like blurred vision, but again, it's maybe 1% of the population that does experience these side effects. Again, Clomid is used across the board to induce ovulation in the female population.
Interesting. So let's go back then. At the very beginning of this, we talked about a patient that we had recently. So in this patient population, 42-year-old male, already has a child, and I believe previous child was conceived while he was on testosterone therapy. It clearly has questions around, should I come off my therapy? What should I do in conjunction with the therapy? Basically, what do I do, right? So if you take that case scenario of the 42, 43-year-old male who is looking, they're looking to get pregnant one more time and then probably call it quits, what would be your clinical recommendation for that?
Well, I'm happy you brought that up, and I love the case study. The one thing that I would stress to patients right off the board is that we are seeing historically low levels of testosterone in males at a lower age. So again, we're seeing hypogonadism at a much younger, crowd. We're also seeing patients who are reaching, paternal age in males at a much higher age. So these things are overlapping. So I want to just touch on that because even if you are younger than 42 and you are like, oh, I want to, consider having children, please reach out to your prescriber and let them know so that we can get started. As far as sperm, after this, it does take about 3 to 4 months for you to start to experience the benefits. And it takes anywhere from, I believe the data says 90 to 108 days after the day a sperm is made to the day that it's released from the body. So regardless there, we want, for this particular patient, they're trying to conceive, maybe they're on testosterone, they've been on testosterone for a while, they feel great, they're like, I don't want to come off. Coming off of testosterone can certainly cause issues that could affect your ability to conceive, including, erectile dysfunction or a lack of sexual drive. For this patient, obviously, reach out to your prescriber and they can explain, which is best for that particular patient. But gonadorelin is usually one of the first forms, that people will look into because it's in LH and FSH. So when it comes to sperm, you need testosterone and FSH to create sperm. So some people think, I just have follicular stimulating hormone. It's going to interact with Sertoli cells and I'm going to create sperm. You do need intratesticular testosterone to activate that.
Right.
So in this case, maybe if the patient is not comfortable with injections, clomiphene is certainly another great option. But gonadorelin is great, very available. And our prescribers are very well versed in the benefits of it.
So what I'm hearing you say is that with these therapies we're talking about, the gonadorelin, the HCG, the clomiphene, the kispeptins, there's really no science or definitive study showing that men should come off of their testosterone therapy. Correct? Because that, for a couple different reasons. I mean, again, while that it's not necessarily going to be that that contraceptive we talked about earlier, right? Because I mean, the other products we're talking about is going to address that aspect because of what you say. It has to occur intratesticularly. So, there's a lot of bad advice out there, I guess, right? So some of the bad advice is, hey, you got to come off your testosterone. Well, not necessarily. I mean, because there's still, first of all, there's still the whole benefit. Why did you even get on the therapy in the first place? Okay, we have to address that, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a whole myriad reasons why we do testosterone therapy. But if nothing else, sex drive alone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we come off our testosterone therapy, well, we're not going to really be willing or want to do what we have to create the pregnancy that we're sought after.
Absolutely.
Right?
So I think the biggest thing to say here is that using these options, HCG, gonadorelin, or clomiphene, adjunct to your testosterone replacement therapy, will preserve your fertility and your ability to conceive, meanwhile allowing you to feel your best every day. Because coming off of testosterone replacement therapy, especially pretty bluntly, can cause your body to go, into almost a state of shock, withdrawal, because it's a very important sex hormone. So people will, a lot of prescribers would say it's almost counterintuitive to suggest the patient come off of testosterone replacement therapy when we know that we have these options such as, like we mentioned before, gonadorelin, Pregnil, or HCG, and clomiphene that can preserve your fertility, enable you to conceive, meanwhile letting you feel the best every single day.
Yeah. I think this is a great discussion because, again, I think that there's more of a population out there that fit the category that we're talking about than we even realize. Again, as couples try to conceive, and I know typically, I should say historically, conception has been kind of a younger person's idea, right? We try to do that in our 20s, maybe 30s. We're seeing a little bit of a shift in that. We're seeing a shift in, not old people, but I mean people into their mid to late 30s and 40s who maybe they've waited, to kind of establish their careers a little bit and not have to be so financially strapped, or for whatever reason, they just feel like, hey, wait a minute, my family is not complete.
And I'm happy you said that. A lot of data came out that indicates we're borderline hitting a fertility crisis. About 10 years ago was the time that this study started, the mean age for gestation in men or paternal age in men was 28. Today, it's a little over 30. And while 2 years might not seem, huge to a lot of people, over the course of 10 years, which is a relatively short time span in the scheme of science, that is a pretty high jump. And while we don't know exactly why that is, it could be a result of, just economic strain and women, honestly, needing to enter the workforce and not being as home so much, increase in stress, but also, a big part of it is the historically decreasing levels of testosterone and hormone imbalances in both men and women.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I mean, a lot of people are just waiting a little bit longer to get married. There's not as many people getting married at 22 and 23 anymore. Some people are waiting till they're 30, 35, or 40 to even get married in the first place. Yeah. What's interesting about the number you talked about where for the men now, the age seems to be 30 that you talked about a minute ago. Well, what's interesting is what clearly pulled that number up by 2 years is the bell curve on the other side of the men who are 38, 39, and 40 that pulled that number up to begin with anyway. We still have some on the other side that kept the number relatively low and kept from going up too high. But the fact that it's even going up means we have more of an older male population out there that are trying to still conceive.
Yeah,
right?
and I stand firmly when I say that those patients deserve to feel their best. You deserve to, not feel bogged down every day. You deserve to be slimmer, healthier, and live a better lifestyle on testosterone replacement therapy, meanwhile retaining your ability to conceive. It should not be one or the other.
Right. No, couldn't agree more. I think it's a great topic. Well, I hope you got a lot out of this today. As always, I'm going to tell you to go to www.elitehealthonline.com. You'll be able to see all these products we talked about today, even products we didn't discuss, new stuff that's coming on. We have a lot of literature that's getting posted there almost on a daily basis. You'll have access to certain types of media like podcasts that we're doing right now, a little bit of everything. So you can click on the Got a Question button if you need to learn a little bit more about what it is that we do and book an appointment with one of our specialists. Or if you already know that you want to get going, there's a book telehealth appointment you can go to and get started, get signed up. It's free. There's no barrier. We do not charge for labs. We do not charge for the consultation. So there's no reason not to get started. So again, www.elitehealthonline.com, click Got a Question or book telehealth appointment and get started with us today.